You just have to remember, no matter who you have, they're gonna tell you you can use something. Right. Uh, Oh, yeah.
You know, and Rockwell, yes.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First, if would stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, very good. Yes. All right, first, I would like to declare both Larry and Fred necessarily absent, and some announcements, if we could. The emergency exits are to your right and left. Restrooms are out in the lobby area. If you haven't done so already, please sign the attendance sheet. You'll also note back there the proposed resolution, along with email addresses and phone numbers for the planning department. If you would, either turn up your cell phones or silence them, and if you need to have conversations that do not relate to the ongoing application, please take it out in the hallway. As far as the applications go, I think Paul knows this, but we'll just put it on the record anyway, that if there are exhibits you want us to look at, please let us know what exhibits you'd like Susie to pull up on the screen and we can talk about them. If they're new exhibits, we don't have them, let us know. We'll certainly receive them and we'll mark them accordingly. As you're going through the exhibits, do your best to use descriptive language, north, south, east, west, structures, whatever it is, instead of saying, if you notice over here and notice over there. That makes Amber's job just a little bit more difficult to figure out what it is that we're talking about. All right, with that, next order of business I'd like to take care of is approval of the December 2nd, 2024 minutes. I would entertain a motion for approval.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Matt. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Leah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. You going to take the lead, Paul? Okay. We're here for an interpretation.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Paul Colucci with DeMarco Group here tonight on behalf of 770 Canning Parkway LLC and our tenant, Four Winds Chimney. Four Winds is a general contractor and service-related business. The proposal is to occupy the vacant one half of the existing building at 770 Canning Parkway. Our previous tenant, which was Dealer Docks, has vacated. Bristol and
Sorry?
Dealer Docks.
Docks, okay.
Dealer Docks was operating there. They vacated a little over a year ago. Bristol Instruments still occupies the westerly half of the building and will continue to do so in their current configuration. The reason we're here tonight is in submitting the application for site plan approval for some minor modifications that we're doing on behalf of Four Winds Chimney, which includes the installation of paved asphalt vehicular service staging area on the easterly side of the building and a roadway driveway connection to an existing driveway servicing Canning Parkway. When the application was submitted, code enforcement reviewed the application and determined that in the light industrial district, this specific use is not exactly listed as a permitted use in the district, albeit it is of similar uses as others described and not a prohibited use. So the process is we seek a zoning interpretation and then we would go back to the planning board for issuance of a special use permit. We did meet with the planning board last week. The meeting was very positive, and they know that we were seeking this positive zoning interpretation this evening, and then subject to the zoning interpretation from this board, we would return to planning board.
Okay. So, I think you were alluding to, but if not, I will specify it as I'm reading the application, your letter to the zoning board on February 13th, and then Adam's notes, and looking at the code. And then when you look at the intent and compare that to the permitted uses, and then read on to the uses that are not permitted, it causes me, it's a bit of a head scratcher on where does all this fit in? When I look at it and look at some of the things that are permitted, it doesn't quite fit, especially when you look at the pieces about directly to customers, retail, and almost like it feels like that's what it is. And I appreciate your candor and saying that's a lot of your business, and what you're doing is directly to a customer. There's a showroom, you do some commercial stuff.
Yep.
But then when you go down and look at things that are not permitted, let's say auto, it's like, well, that's right to a customer. And how does that look? And it's really not quite retail. So there's a lot of things that don't quite mesh together. And then I started thinking, well, where else would this go? It certainly isn't going to go anywhere near, let's say, the mall or residential. It seems light industrial seems to be the best fit for it. So that's where I am so far. I'd like to hear what the board has to say and think about it. You got questions, comments, concerns?
No, I agree with what you said. It seems more geared to light industrial because you do some, you have the warehouse and I guess there's some manufacturing done there.
There is some light assembly, yes.
Yes, and like Mike said, it's not somewhere, you wouldn't put this business in the mall. And so I did have a question. I don't know if you can answer it because you're not the owner of the business, but where the business has its current location, first question is, how much square foot is their current showroom? I don't know if
So they don't have a showroom in their current location. In their current location in East Rochester, they've outgrown it. They strictly operate as in a very rapidly growing business. So currently they have some administrative staff and then the warehouse component and the typical daily staging of vehicles for service calls during the day. So this is a desired component. So the showroom also doubles as a training center, training room. So as new technicians are coming on board, they have fireplace inserts, they have how do the different components go together, how does a B-vent work, how does power vent work for fireplace inserts. So while the showroom is we'll call it a retail component, it's not envisioned that someone's driving by and saying, hey, there's Four Winds Chimney, let me go in and, I want to buy a fireplace insert. It's when they have a customer who they're servicing and they have a proposal to them and that customer says, geez, do you have any of these installed? I'd like to see what it looks like. So they will have essentially a fireplace wall with various types of fireplace inserts that customer can come. And then also it helps the customer to understand, you're going to tear my chimney apart and do what? And they can show them this is what's going to go in there. So they don't anticipate that the showroom is a large part of their business. It's essentially available for, like I said, training staff, training new technicians, putting best practices in place for how these are installed. The majority of the space, about 10,000 square feet, is warehouse. About 1,500 square foot is dedicated to that showroom where they'll have the fireplace inserts, and then the remaining about 8,500 square feet is administrative, where that'll be all their management, project managers, administrative staff, credit department, all the stuff that supports the business.
Yeah, so since they didn't really have a showroom at their old location, and their business model is not changing, And that really, where their business is actually headquarters is actually, it doesn't mean anything to the customer, because the customer is going to call whether they want it, and especially if they want a new chimney, they're going to call them, they come to the house, and now this just gives the customer an option
That's right.
to look, to visually see maybe some different options or characteristics
Yep.
of the chimney. And then, of course, the commercial end of it, that's just commercial, they wouldn't,
Right.
they wouldn't come in. And that was going to be one of my questions, but you said they don't have a current showroom. Approximately how much of their customers are walk-in? But I guess since they don't have a showroom, they really didn't have that.
Yeah, and I would say the percentage of walk-in customers is probably going to be negligible.
Yeah.
It would be the scheduled appointment to come and view, how does the exterior application of their chimney look. They have different stone options, they have different tile options, so they can have essentially, and this is very similar when I got thinking about it, like if we had a bath and kitchen type service, right, where someone does home remodels and they do bath and kitchen or flooring, right? A flooring contractor has a showroom, they have a warehouse, they have administrative staff. Very similar, and these types of businesses don't specifically fit in light industrial, but it makes perfect sense that that's where they should be. So as I was talking with Adam, he was kind of scratching his head and saying, I just can't say it's specifically a permitted use, but we believe that this is the right location for it.
Yeah, because also I saw here, it's not only, you don't only, the business doesn't only do new fireplaces, but they do all the services with it.
That's right.
So that to me would make it think it would fit more into the light industrial, because they do those various services. And that's all the questions I have for now.
Thank
Yeah, I see it similarly as Mike does, although it's not, obviously the permitted uses are more designed for business-to-business type applications, though I do feel it fits under the special use permit section, item 5, uses of similar character. Once you get into the special use permits, one of the things that sticks out to me is it starts to pull in other businesses that are direct to consumer, right? Daycare centers, you've got parents coming directly and picking up their kids. Self-storage facilities for sure, right? You've got consumers coming in and out, servicing those facilities. So I see this as a hybrid that would fall under the special use permit bucket, something as, similar in character to the permitted uses listed in subsection A, but not specifically called out. That's kind of how I see it.
All right. Another thing I want to touch on is looking at the prohibited uses. Just go down them quick. It's industries whose principal activity is storage of hazardous materials. You're not doing that. Slaughterhouse, you're not doing that. Airports, hotels, motels, retail establishments. What you're doing, or what the business is going to be doing, doesn't fit in the prohibited areas. And I think that usually is that red flag that zoning codes, when they restrict something that they're concerned about, we really don't want that kind of business in this area. And they say, this stuff is prohibited. And it's difficult then to, when you say, well, these things are permitted, is to do that blanket. Well, all the other things are permitted.
Right.
So I'm focusing as well as on the prohibited. It doesn't fit in there. And if it doesn't fit in prohibited, I think for a municipality to say, it really should, makes more sense in that light industrial areas for all the other zoning areas that we have.
Right.
All right. Adam, you want to touch on anything else and comments, something that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I think you addressed it, and, I don't think we'd even be here if that under permitted uses, the line that says service industries of the type that provide service to other industries rather than retail consumers. It if it just said service industries, they wouldn't even be before the zoning board. And I think this is something that we've added to, in the building department, our list of things that possibly are going to be recommended for amendment in the zoning code to take, we'll call it like a mechanical service type of business, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, kitchen and bath, to an extent, and what you guys are doing, and, you know, recommend that be more specifically addressed in at least one of the zoning districts. And it seems like the light industrial district, in my opinion, marries with that type of business, because you have things like a fleet of vehicles.
Right.
You know, you wouldn't want to have a fleet of vehicles parked in front of, you know, Hobby Lobby, for example, in the commercial district.
Right.
Perhaps the commercial light industrial district would include it as well, because it is that combination of commercial / light industrial. But that'd be it.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, sir.
Anyone from the public want to speak for or against the interpretation?
Sit down.
I have to ask, got to put it out there. All right, so if I understand what Adam is saying and what he's written for us, it would be upheld for permitting this type of business to go into the light industrial area. And now it's our function as far as supporting that. And the reasons that I see are the code is vague. And in that case, I would think it should be in favor of the applicant as opposed to in favor of the municipality. As I look down into section C and the prohibited uses, I don't see any concern whatsoever about what the business plans on doing and being anywhere near any of those prohibited uses. And the fact that it sure sounds like that type of business is the best fit for the light industrial compared to all the other districts that we have. Leah, Matt, you want to add anything else to the support of Adam's decision for upholding that this kind of business should be in the light industrial area?
Is a permitted or a special use?
Or still, no, right.
Or a special use or just?
Right, right. Our function is an interpretation. We're not really granting anything. It's now, if we feel that this fits under the light industrial and for the special use permit for review on the planning board, then it's going to be back into their court on taking the next steps. That's what we're doing here today.
Okay.
All right, sound good, Leah?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Anything else from us? Good? Okay. So I would entertain a motion for approval of the interpretation with the reasons that we stated for, you want me to repeat them again? You're good, okay. Then I'll entertain a motion for it.
Motion to approve.
All right,
Second?
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for your information and your patience with us.
Good to see everyone. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Too.
Nice to see you.
Give us one moment, please.
Sure.
It's ourselves. Okay. Might you be Mr. Nadler?
I am Mr. Nadler, Chris Nadler.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So you are seeking an area variance for an existing structure, an 8x12 A-frame, to remain in its current location at or about 552 Champion Drive. Is that right?
That's correct. Championship Drive.
Sorry, Championship Drive. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Chris Nadler, General Counsel for Mark IV Enterprises, the owner of Champion Reserve Townhomes, which is a 72 townhome rental community. There are 72 individually lotted townhouses, each of which is for rent. It's important to note, as I stated in my most recent submission, none of the townhomes can be sold individually. If you were going to buy this, you would be buying 72 townhouses. You can't buy one of the 72 because there's no homeowners association, and there's no direct access to utilities and public streets for some of the units. The reason they're individually lotted is because Monroe County Water Authority will only provide a water meter for each individually lotted unit. So if we were building apartment buildings, we're building 72 apartments in 10 buildings, they would probably all be on one giant lot. Here, we have 72 individual lots, which is why we have a shed that we put in, I believe, last year to hold salt and salt in the winter for our snowplow contractors and hand tools in the summer for our landscape contractors. And it's technically in the front yard of lot number 552, but it's really the common area of what is an apartment complex. It's just individually lotted townhouses. I attached a number of pictures so you can see the shed from different perspectives, showing it really in the common area of the community. You know, Mark IV manages this apartment complex like we do many other apartment complexes, and our maintenance technicians and our contractors need somewhere to put, you know, salt, quite frankly, shovels, weed whackers, that kind of thing. And this really is a great spot for it. There aren't really very many alternate locations for this, based on the grade behind, you know, if you go behind the units, the grade really drops off, or it's one of the backyards that somebody's renting. I think it really doesn't change the character of the community or have any adverse environmental impacts. It's not substantial, given that we own all of these units on both sides of the street, all the way, you know, almost a half a mile down. With that, I'd answer any questions that you guys have.
Are you familiar with Gypsum Mills?
No.
All right, Gypsum Mills is, would be east of here.
Okay.
And a number of modular mobile homes. Adam, a guesstimate on how many homes are over there?
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
Okay.
If memory serves, one owner owns the entire lot.
Okay.
Difference between Gypsum Mills and here is there's no side setbacks, there's no rear, and the water meters are to each individual home.
Do that
So
with trailers.
I don't think that it's accurate to say that it's just one water meter for your entire complex.
No. Oh, that wasn't what I was trying to say.
What were you trying
I
to
was
say?
trying to say that Monroe County Water Authority, when sending to an individual townhouse, they'd require that individual townhouse to be a separate lot.
Okay.
I don't know what that rule is for manufactured housing. I also don't know if that's Monroe County Water Authority.
All right, are
If it's
you,
town water, they don't require that usually.
are you taxed for one unit or per parcel?
We are taxed per parcel.
And they should be treated as such. And it's accurate, isn't it, then? What you have here at 552 is you have side setbacks and rear and front setbacks.
Yes.
So
Oh.
I'd like to hear what the board has to think on, I'm not really understanding why the rental property issue is paramount to, you should be able to put that shed wherever you want. Because nobody else in that place cares, because you own them all. Or am I misunderstanding the point?
I wouldn't say that nobody cares, but we do own them all. So when you're talking about impact to the neighborhood, and, you know, frequently a zoning board will get 10 neighbors who show up and say, this is going to ruin our lives, or 10 neighbors who show up and say, we think this is great, please let them do that. We're all 10 neighbors. So that's why I mentioned that it's really just one apartment community. I wasn't saying that's a deciding factor. I think that does have weight when deciding what the impact on the character of the neighborhood is because we're all of the neighbors. Each one is owned by the same entity. That was my point. I wasn't trying
Okay,
to.
all right, I'm going to hold other questions. Matt, you got questions, comments?
Yeah, couple of things. The shed does kind of stick out, right? It's not really conforming with the neighborhood. There's one shed, right, per, kind of in a sea of, 72 other units. I would assume most of the contractors, when they come, they've got their trucks and, they can have their tools in their trucks, they could have salt in the trucks, so I'm sure it's a convenience. I'm just trying to figure out, is it really like a need versus a want, right, in terms of the shed itself? Because I'm trying to think of another situation where there would be, just a sole shed, in the middle of the neighborhood like this, just for the purposes of tools and such. Where, you're gonna have people that come to mow, or where all your subcontractors or employees, they could put the salt in the truck, or they could put the weed whacker in the truck.
Yeah, I don't disagree that they could. I don't know that our maintenance technicians, on-site maintenance technicians have company trucks. Actually, I'm quite certain they don't. So they're carrying they're carrying it from when somebody probably drops off the salt. So the intent there was to have on-site salt for 24-hour operations rather than having to have a guy use his own car.
Where, also, is there another location where you could really make this work that's accessible, that maybe isn't in the middle of a, kind of like a cul-de-sac area? Is there?
It could work probably in some of the backyards on the opposite side of the street, but then that resident doesn't, they're renting a townhouse with a backyard. But after the backyard, there's slopes that would prohibit it. It would probably fit on the rear of, if you see the furthest townhouses there, and then right past those townhouses back up into Gillis. I guess you could put it back there, but I don't think anybody wants it backing up into Gillis either.
Is there still a showroom?
No, there isn't I guess that's sort of the answer to that question. The leasing office is at the country club, which is, I don't know, probably a mile away. So they're getting their tools from there, and there isn't a showroom or a maintenance shed on site other than this.
So could they utilize Champion Hills for
Sure.
for that instead
Absolutely.
of this?
Yep. But then you'd have a guy carrying bags of salt back and forth,
And he's still going to carry bags of salt back and forth?
a lot less distance.
I don't know if I'm buying that, but.
From Champion Hills Country Club?
Yeah, I'm
a lot
assuming he's
further.
going to take a bag of salt. I've never seen I live there, so I've never seen anybody walk around with a bag of salt.
You
They,
got a shed.
no, he's either putting it in his car, he's not walking the
Yeah,
whole
yes, I
neighborhood.
think he'd put it
You're
in
kind
his
of
car.
trying to give me this
Yeah.
vision with this poor guy with bags of salt on his shoulders,
that's
right,
a little
walking a mile
unrealistic,
uphill
yeah.
both ways in the winter, right?
But he is going to have to use his own car because we don't have a company truck
Sure,
there.
sure. No, I get it. It's a total convenience.
Yes.
I'm just trying to
Agreed.
weigh
Yes.
need versus want.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to see what everyone else has to say.
Leah?
So to add on to what Matt was saying, so you have, I would say an employee
Yes.
who works for
Company.
the development company.
Yes.
Who, he does the maintenance work. So it's not like, you're not like hiring a contractor to come either shovel the snow or put the salt or do the yard work.
A little bit of both
A
is
little-
the truthful answer to that. We have on-site maintenance technicians who shovel the sidewalks and the front porches and salt those.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have contractors who
the
plow the
plowing.
road and the driveways and salt those.
Okay.
I believe is the distinction. It's some of each is the
Yeah,
answer.
okay. So this salt and the shovels, that's, like you said, for the walkways and the
Yes.
and up to the individual houses,
Yeah.
you know, whatever they do. So those guys, like Matt was saying, they're going to still come in some vehicle
Yeah.
and do it, and they're not, they're not even, it's probably going to be like one or two or three bucket sizes. That's what I figure they would have, because even in that shed, how much are they going to store?
Probably not a ton.
Yeah, that's why I gave, you know, more or less like three bucket size, might be more, might be
I think
less.
it'd be more than that. It's got to be enough to do all these houses right here and across the street.
True, but they're still going to need a vehicle, even once they get to the shed. They're still going to need that vehicle to get to a lot of those houses, you know, from that central location. So, correct?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. So it's whether they're in the vehicle going to that shed or going back to the leasing office, they're still going to be in the vehicle, whether it's their own or, like you said, they don't have it. Correct?
Okay.
So up until last year and a half, when you put this shed there, they were, all the tools were over back where the leasing office is, correct?
I believe so. No, I believe we had a leasing office. One of the units was a leasing office on site, so there was a garage.
Because this is really at
available
the
for that.
end, right? I mean, this is towards the
Yeah,
far end.
this is the last phase.
And so where the leasing office is really towards the front of the development.
That's accurate. And up until last year, we had a leasing office, which was an entire unit with that unit's garage right across the street from from that picture. So I'm assuming they used that as their.
Yeah, and I remember seeing,
Yeah.
you know, I saw it from the street. And why wasn't it incorporated in the design to at least have a little storage area, even if it was attached to one of the units? Because this phase of the development, I mean, it's there only no more than 3 years, because,
Yeah.
you know, that's when I saw it.
I think that's
mean,
a very good question, why that wasn't incorporated. And I don't have an answer for that.
You know, because like Matt said too, and I agree, you know, it kind of sticks out there. It doesn't really blend in, you know, whereas even if it was something next to a unit, you know, might blend in better, but you know, it's just out there in the middle of nowhere. And what I saw, it kind of looked like it was on some type of pallet.
Okay.
You,
I don't know how it's attached.
Yeah,
think
I
it
don't,
is.
I mean, and I could be wrong, but that's kind of how it looked. It looked like it was a little raised. Like
Okay.
it wasn't on a concrete bed, and maybe because it's not fully approved, I don't know how
Yeah, I
it's
don't know
gonna
why
be.
they did that or how it's attached, quite frankly.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
All right. You have contractors that you hire, correct?
Yes.
All right, to do various things, plowing and lawn maintenance and all that for all
Yes.
those homes. What about employees?
We also have those who
many-
do those things too, but on, I guess you'd say a smaller scale.
How many employees?
Of our, here, full-time, one, in the winter, it might be two, 1 to 2 is the answer.
That's full-time?
Yeah.
What about part-time?
We have Mark IV employees go to the site to do stuff, so they're full-time Mark IV employees, but they do go to the site. And then in the winter, there's probably, no, we don't have snowplow, nope, just the two,
You have a fleet of
full-time,
vehicles?
1 to 2 full-time.
You have a fleet of vehicles, pickup trucks, ATVs, golf carts.
We don't have any ATVs or golf carts. We do have vehicles, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So it's possible then for whatever salting or whatever you need that shed for, it can go in your fleet of vehicles and transport it all of a mile to get done whatever needs to get done. Is that fair to say?
Well, our fleet of vehicles is located on McKee Road in the city of Rochester, so they're not swinging by Champion Reserve to deliver salt. So that being said, and I understand your point, absolutely, there are other ways we could distribute salt. The reason we're asking for a variance here, and I think the reasons why a variance is justified, is our 5 area variance standards in state law and town code. Is it going to produce an undesirable change in the neighborhood? No, we can see it. That's not undesirable. Maybe it sticks out a little bit, but it's been
I
there.
beg to differ on that, but keep going.
Okay. The neighborhood is, each one of the houses in the neighborhood is owned by the same entity. So there's no neighbors complaining about this. There's no neighbors who can be offended by it. Can the benefit sought be achieved by some other method? Is there another method by which to distribute salt? Possibly. But can we have a shed, which is what we're looking for, in another location on the site? Not really. There may be other locations, but not enough flat locations that would be practical and accessible. Is the variance substantial? No, because each one of these units, each one of these lots is owned by the same entity. We're not encroaching on another property owner's lot line. We're not
Can I
encroaching into the neighborhood.
Stop you there. I think what you need to do a fair comparison, or the analysis is, substantial in this case is how far forward of the front line of that house is it? Is it an inch, a foot, 10 feet, 10 yards, 20 yards? I think looking at that aerial map, it is substantially in front of that house.
Well, I'd indicate that under New York state law, the courts have made very clear that it's not exclusively a linear distance test. It depends on the context. The question of substantiality can be what I said. It can also be what you said.
Okay.
So I think that's not exclusive to how far it is. Yeah, of course, that's very far in front of the house. I agree. But if this were, but the only reason it's requiring, or it's in violation of your zoning code is because it's on an individual lot. It acts like, and it is, an apartment rental community. The fact that we have individual lots is making it, the location not be in compliance. So I guess that's what I have to say about that.
And so and part of it comes down to, do we want to treat this like it was a standard development with lot lines and in a neighborhood that is here speaking for it? Or do we treat it like like you said, an apartment complex, even though it's got lot lines?
It is a parcel that is taxed individually, and the reason that he's here for variances, it is forward of that front line of that home. In my mind, the fact that it's a rental is irrelevant. It's a parcel. And taxes are being paid on an individual basis. If you own a piece of property and in the town, if it was permissible to rent the property in a neighborhood, does that mean the rules change because your landlord and the tenant then has to then maybe put up with the shed, and the code then is changed because it's a landlord-tenant relationship as opposed to you own it outright? I don't think so. I don't think the rules change in that case. I'm not familiar with it unless you have some case law to tell me otherwise. And I hear you on all of those properties, that shed being there, sure you know that just because one is there doesn't necessarily mean then that the whole landslide is going to happen and you're going to start putting sheds all over the place on all of these parcels. And then the board is going to be handcuffed a bit to say, well, gee, one shed was there, not two, not 10, not a dozen, and that's just going to hurt the value of your property.
Yeah, we're not putting any more sheds on it. I can promise that.
Well, maybe, maybe not, but you may sell the place and a new owner may come in and we can play the parade of horribles all day and figure out what's going to happen next. We're looking at an isolated incident and the shed is already there and we're going to go through the criteria on may or may not change the character of the neighborhood. I think a bigger point here is it's substantial. I understand what you're saying, that it's not distance alone. When you look at one individual home, taxed individually, with a shed that is 57 feet forward of the front of that house, in my opinion, that's substantial. Any other comments, Leah and Matt?
I agree. If we're going to treat this like it was a neighborhood with lots like it is, then yeah, it would absolutely be substantial and not within character of the neighborhood. I mean, we wouldn't go to a Ryan Home community. We've had plenty of people come to us, right? Wanting to put greenhouses in their front yards or put sheds in their front yards, and it just doesn't, it doesn't meet that criteria very, very often. This is similar. I do have a question for you. So on the map that you gave us, let's see if I can get it's we want to refer to this one.
Which one? The survey map or one
No,
of
it's
the Encore maps?
it's an aerial map, and it's
Okay.
got 552 highlighted in yellow, showing the
Yep.
shed.
My map.
I
There's
got
a,
three of those.
where is the front line of the yard? So for example, if you put the shed to the north of 554, next to those, see those two cars in the parking lot? Are you not forward of the front line? I mean, if you put it in the lawn there so that you could be accessed from one of those spots, would you? It seems like that would be,
That's where it is in the lawn, or it's in.
no, I'm talking about in
No,
554.
Next to 554.
Actually, here,
east.
maybe come up here for a second, it'd be easier for me. I'm just gonna draw a,
Here, go ahead, it's right up there.
like, couldn't you put it here, and you're not forward, like, and so I know sometimes, like, we get into these debates on where's the front of the house, right?
Is it the front of the house?
So east.
In your code?
You're talking east of 554, right? Is that right?
East, yes, east.
Which one? Yeah.
Like that, literally.
Yeah.
So, Matt, I know what's triggering the need for a variance in measuring from, I think it's the garage.
Yeah.
If you look
No,
at-
it's not the garage on that.
So I don't know if the front is.
Right,
like
so the
this,
front
or
is-
it like this?
No. Go ahead, Adam.
It's unique because,
It's not a corner lot.
well, you're right, and most of these parcels are landlocked parcels, right? So which line is the front line? I think we're basing it on the face of the building.
You can't call that.
I understand what you're talking about.
You
What I'm
can't call
saying
a
is,
semicircle.
is if you were to say that 554 fronts on Championship Drive, where does 552 front? And I think
Wait, where's,
it was reviewed that it's forward of the face of the building. The front line would be determined to be, because this lot does not have frontage on a public way, the front lot line was determined by the face of the building. Whereas in most cases, it would have to do with a conventional lot's frontage on a public way. 554 technically fronts on Championship Drive.
All right, so let's run through a couple of options then. Would he need a variance if you put the shed to the east of 554? All right, let me ask, you pause, so let's ask it a different way. Would he need a variance if it were between 546 and 548 I mean, going west.
In between them?
It can't sit right on the property line, it's
Yeah, so.
gotta go one or the other, but.
And I get which direction you're going. The grades there kind of prohibit that. I think, I was just looking at that.
There's drainage, there's a drainage
Yeah.
channel, you can see.
The only place that would work would be down the road in between 586 and 588. It's relatively flat. There is.
Closer to the club.
There's one of those overflow parking areas there, and you only need to be behind the front line of the home. You wouldn't be able to put it on the line, so it would technically have to favor one side or the other.
Okay.
But if you were to get it, whatever one of those two lots, I know they're not on any of these maps. I'm looking at Google Earth right now,
Oh,
just to, because I thought that might come up. The one directly across the street between 545 and 547, the grade slopes pretty hard from 545 to 547, so it's not flat. You know, with your need for the flat area, in between these units, these are walkout units, the grade between these buildings drops, 9 feet over the course of, 60 feet. So,
What it's necessary for us to, are there feasible means some other place that he doesn't need a variance? We can find a couple. That doesn't mean you have to do it, but if it's there and some other options, instead of it being some
54.
57 feet forward, I think it's valuable to do an exercise to say, can that shed that you want, you really would like to have for your shovels and salt and whatever else is in there, it's some other place that is close to where that shed is, but still a place where you don't need a variance. We have to go through that exercise. And if I hear Adam right, there's some potential spots that it could go.
yeah, I mean, I'm basing it off of a photo, but it looks like there may be
There may be one other spot down the road.
Yeah, where the need for a variance would not be necessary.
Let me ask you this, Adam. How much time would it take out of your day to go in that area, look around and say, you can go here, there, here, here?
Yeah, not long.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I would propose tabling this, let them take a look at it, because if we make a decision of what we have right now, you may not like the answer. If you find some place and you say, okay, got it, I can deal with that, you may want to say, I want to withdraw the application, and therefore you wouldn't have any adverse impact by a
Good idea.
resolution that doesn't go in your favor,
I think that's great.
okay?
Or if the only places he finds are on a 9x1 slope, then you've got that data too, so there's no
Swear him in.
And it may be the case where it's still forward of the front line, but it's less substantial.
Yeah.
It's 15 feet versus.
So where I drew it, you believe it's forward of the front line?
Like I said, that it's, if you're
Well-
gonna say that 554 fronts on Championship Drive, then you would change.
Well, that's how you would interpret it, right? I mean,
It's a question, and I'll
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
call you about that, because I think your code says the front is any drive, not just a public drive, but I might be wrong about that, we could hash that out.
Okay, yeah, and I
You're
could
taking, where the shed is right now, you're taking a paved spot that, it's there for some reason. I don't think it was for a shed. It was, I'm presuming it was for a vehicle.
It was there, I can tell you why, because in, 30 years ago, when this plan was approved by the town, that's what our engineer guessed we would require for parking. We don't need it for parking anymore. We know that for a fact because none of our tenants are complaining on a place to park.
All right.
I think in my review too, there was an amount of parking in the resolution that was based upon per unit, and they had more than enough parking spots even with the elimination of that one. So they had some they could afford to.
So they're even looking at this aerial, a shed that size, even across the street from Championship Drive, to the south of 554. They're not going, it's a rental parcel, and you put it on their property, not in their backyard, in the side yard. There's got to be other places that are potential for a shed to go that you don't need a variance. And if Matt can take a look at it, spend maybe 20
That's a great
minutes out
idea.
there, and maybe he comes back and says, no, this is it. That's the last spot. That's valuable information.
Yes, sir.
All right, can we agree on that? We're going to, Leah, Matt, table it for our next meeting as well?
When is that? Do you know?
That's where,
April 7th.
Thank you very much.
all right, that works, very good, we'll
Look
table
forward to
it.
seeing you next month. Adam, I'll be in touch.
Very good.
Thank you kindly.
Thanks so much, have a good night. Thanks for your patience. This is you. All right, great, thank you, that was valuable. All right, any other business for the board?
I just have, looking at these draft resolution for the interpretation, with the determination made by code enforcement officer is hereby reversed or upheld. I think this, so there's two reasons why applicant would come for interpretation. Either I did make a determination, let's say it's a sign code, and I say, no, it doesn't meet the code, and the applicant disagrees, they have the right to come to the zoning board of appeals for interpretation, and I think that's where the reversed upheld comes in, whereas the interpretation tonight is something that the code allows them to do, because I determined that it wasn't expressly.
Okay, that's fine,
These-
because, right,
yeah.
I hear you.
I didn't technically make a determination. I said, there's not enough information. The zoning board has to make the determination.
Right, so we provided guidance on your question on, is this permitted or not?
Correct.
The interpretation, it still seems like, is what's the front line of the house, front line of those homes?
Well, he's not here for interpretation. I was referring to,
So your assumption was, probably rightfully so, that the front of the homes is the front of the homes.
Right,
And
so
that the shed is out of code because it's in the front.
so another code enforcement officer made that determination, but I was referring to the way this resolution for Four Winds Chimney
Oh, forward,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I was still on this guy.
and how, so like, yeah, so if we had told him it's four to the front line and he had said, I disagree with you, I disagree with your interpretation of the code, he would have the right to appeal to you guys to say, is this shed four to the front line of the home? And I feel like that's how, this draft resolution for Four Winds was kind of drafted. What I was saying was because the special use permit part of the code allows for a zoning interpretation. It's not because I made an interpretation and they're in disagreement with it. It's because I can't make the determination. The zoning board has to.
Well, I prefer, when an interpretation is requested, it comes from code enforcement.
So the code's not written that way. It's written that they disagree with my interpretation and they apply to the zoning board for
My
interpretation.
understanding of case law is that doesn't mean it can't, it's preferred if the request for an interpretation comes from the code enforcement officer. Usually then what happens is if an applicant says, I want a building permit, I want to do this and this and this, and you're looking at the building permit and you're scratching your head, I don't know, I can't tell you because the code doesn't provide me with sufficient information to tell you whether or not you need a variance for this thing or not.
Right.
So it's really, it's coming from code, the code enforcement officer saying, this is what they're asking for, and I need you, zoning board, to tell me what you think about what does this code permit, or do we need a variance, and all those types of questions, which is what happened with the name of the chimney place. Four Winds Chimney.
I see. I guess I just felt the way it was written, it says by application to the zoning board.
So, then for clarity, what we have, a motion was made to uphold Adam's interpretation. And what we can do is, well, the applicant's not here, I don't think it's out of order, but we would need a motion then to revisit that and clarify the reversal and upheld. And we can have more of a discussion about it, and then if need be, we can amend the resolution we made 30 minutes ago.
In this particular case, because I'm on record saying that I believe that it fits in the character of the neighborhood, we could probably stick with the upheld. I'm just saying in future cases for this type of interpretation, this may not be the best
Form.
form. Correct.
I'm fine with that. Are you okay with that, Leah? Okay, then we'll leave it, and no need to reopen that. Any other business before the board? All right, hearing none. Motion to adjourn? Yes? We're good? All right, all in favor? Aye? Good.
Aye.
Wonderful. That's